What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. This week, President Donald Trump made two phone calls that might just alter the trajectory of this long and horrible conflict. One call went to Vladimir Putin, the other to Volodymyr Zelensky, and after talking to them both, Trump declared that everyone involved seemed eager to begin peace talks immediately. Even though both countries, Russia and Ukraine, confirmed that indeed such talks took place, there are probably only a dozen people in the entire world who know exactly which things and conditions were discussed. For us, regular people, we can only guess and make assumptions, based on very little information available in public access. But nevertheless, it is still potentially a dramatic twist and a brutal story that has been playing out for almost 3 years now. You might say it's about time someone tried to stop the fighting in a war that has already consumed far too many lives. And even though Trump might not be the best person to make things right, especially if you are on the Ukrainian side, he is talking about putting an end to this nightmare and, in his usual style, he's not being shy about taking credit if all goes well. One thing is certain, he wants the war to stop. Unfortunately, it does not look like it will be done on mainly Ukrainian terms. But he has many reasons to do it. One of them, this being one of his biggest promises during presidential campaign period, and he simply wants to look like a guy who keeps his promises, who keeps his word. Another reason is because he knows that sentiment among some, if not most Americans, is that they are tired of billions of dollars being sent to foreign aid, while America itself has so many problems at home. And don't worry guys, I'm not talking about you, we here are all pro-Ukrainian and we know that the support to Ukraine must continue. Because if Ukraine loses, or if there will be a peace on Putin's terms, sooner or later, be it 5 or in 10 years from now, Putin will find another reason to invade. He got slapped on the wrist once after 2014 Crimean invasion. He might be about to be slapped again. So when you invade another country twice and you bear absolutely no consequences, don't you think he will try to do it again at some point in the future? Well, of course he will. That's why these potential peace talks are a very huge and very sharp double-edged sword. On one side, yes, everyone is tired, even Ukrainians themselves. I am in constant contact with my Ukrainian side of the family, and they confirm that they want peace at this point, no matter what. They are ready to lose territories if needed, as long as drones and missiles stop flying above them. But on the other side, Putin is about to be let go with just another warning. And as we can already see, warnings do not work on him. Until a couple of days ago, there was no compelling evidence that this war could end anytime soon. The fighting on the ground had become so entrenched that even a pause seemed out of reach. Yet here we are, talking about phone calls, potential summits, and the promises of ceasefire. Trump insists that both Putin and Zelensky are willing to sit down at the negotiating table. He is floating the idea of a meeting in Saudi Arabia, suggesting that the wheels of diplomacy are finally in motion after almost 4 relentless years without any high-profile talks. And by the way, just one quick note guys, the events related to potential peace talks are rapidly evolving as we speak. By the time this video goes live, some new things might be said, while the others will be refuted. I'm trying to report based on stone-cold facts that I have at this very moment, but obviously when something major happens, I will make sure to update you guys as well. All the way until the end, whatever it might be. So if you want to stay in the loop in the environment of these rapidly developing events, please consider subscribing to my channel guys, thank you so much. So, why Saudi Arabia and why now? Trump has not shared those details and neither side has stepped forward with a coherent explanation. But that's part of the reason for the current wave of guarded optimism. For once, key players are openly acknowledging the prospect of peace. That alone marks a massive shift from the usual cycle of threats, escalations and empty rhetoric. And sure, the representatives of Russia, specifically Kremlin's mouthpiece Dmitry Peskov, once again said, "There will be no compromises. All the goals of the special military operation will be achieved." But in reality, that's just one last attempt to bluff and improve their negotiating position. If your enemy believes that you are immovable in your desires, then asking for them for a little bit more things during negotiations is just a little bit easier. After all, even Putin himself claimed after talking with Trump that he accepts the possibility of negotiations at some point in the future. Suddenly, we are imagining a world where negotiations actually happen and the fighting might slow down. The mere mention of a concrete location for peace talks is enough to make global headlines. After all, I think most of us can agree that whenever people stop dying, that is a headline worth celebrating. However, we should be very cautious. Maybe, just maybe, when the fighting stops, the sides will approach negotiations with much cooler heads. But still, there is no clear blueprint just yet for how to resolve such a protracted conflict. Trump might be motivated by a hunger for recognition, maybe even a Nobel Peace Prize. He might just want to prove he can do what the other administration never managed. Whatever his reasons, it looks like he genuinely wants to make a lasting mark as a peacemaker. The question is whether his personal ambition can move mountains when one side's response for waging war remain locked behind the Kremlin's walls. Let me tell you what. We've seen this story before. A glimmer of hope surfaces, the media explodes with speculation, and soon everyone starts imagining a miraculous breakthrough. Right now, the collective relief is almost palpable. News outlets are hailing Trump's announcement as the greatest development in this conflict since it began. Stock markets, both West, East, and even Russian, have shown good upticks. People want this to be real. They are grabbing onto any sign of progress, however vague or unsubstantiated it may be. But what do we actually know, to be honest? This is a very good question. Mostly what Trump told us, he placed 2 phone calls, heard words of tentative agreements, and proposed a gathering in Saudi Arabia. Well, that's pretty much it. The Kremlin's official statement acknowledged the conversation, but it also pointed that the root cause of the conflict must be resolved first. A phrase so vague it can literally mean anything. And meanwhile, Zelensky has not publicly contradicted Trump's upbeat assessment, which suggests he may be on board, at least as far as polite diplomatic gestures go. There is a gaping hole in all this enthusiasm. Nobody has offered specific terms, conditions, or a vision for how hostilities might finally end. This is a conflict that defies easy solutions. On the Ukrainian side, an outright withdrawal of invading forces and restoration of their territorial integrity remains the core demand. On the Russian side, at least based on past statements, there is a talk of security guarantees and eliminating threats, which typically translates to a hardened stance. And just take a second to compare these two demands. Ukrainians want invaders out of the country and its rightful territories back, while Putin wants security guarantees and threat elimination. Which one of these demands sound more clear to you guys? Let me know down below in the comments. So far, the only meaningful development is that someone in power, Trump, he took the bold step of insisting that negotiations must start now. It is a very long shot for now, but it may turn out to be enough to change the script for better or worse. The war did not begin because the United States willed it. Trump is not a person to end it. Neither was Biden or anyone who succeeds Trump, if the war still goes on 4 years from now. If anything, he is an outside player trying to steer the conversation towards a settlement. This conflict started when Putin sent his forces across a sovereign border. That is the root cause, and it's one and only that Kremlin can truly address. Only Putin can stop the war. If he decides he wants a frozen conflict instead of an ongoing slaughter, that would already be a seismic change. If he for once shows genuine initiative in halting the violence, that might have a lasting impact. But so far, we have very few evidence that Putin's mindset has shifted. The Kremlin's press release mentioned an invitation for Trump to visit Moscow, and it acknowledged that both sides agreed to keep the lines of communication open. That's about as non-committal as it gets, as you can see. There is no rallying cry for immediate peace, no calls to demobilize, not even a rumor of negotiations or key questions like the status of territories under occupation. Just a standard, politely worded statement that hints at nothing revolutionary. And meanwhile, life in the war zone has not suddenly improved. Shelling did not stop, soldiers on both sides remain pinned under artillery fire and drone strikes. Russia's recruitment drive still produces new conscripts, and there has been no official talk of slowing it down. If anything, the conscription even increased in Russia, as we discussed in one of our previous episodes. People think that the war might be over soon, so they rush to sign military contracts, collect millions of rubles, and hope they would never need to participate in the actual fighting. And Putin is obviously more than happy to see such an influx of new soldiers. If he was serious about ending this war, you might expect some shift in that department, but not a whisper so far. Maybe he wants to wait and see if Trump's intentions are genuine, or maybe he's buying time while the world relaxes its guard. In conflicts like this, one sure thing is that you cannot sign a peace deal alone. Both parties must commit, and right now we are still guessing about Putin's ultimate plan. So, here we stand at a crossroads where optimism meets caution. In the best case scenario, Trump's plan for talks in Saudi Arabia evolves into a genuine, detailed negotiation process that halts the bloodshed. That would be a real success, mostly for the countless people who have lived too long under the shadow of war. It might be messy, incomplete, and guaranteed to leave many parties dissatisfied. Modern peace deals almost always are like this. But a flawed peace is usually better than an endless grind of death and destruction. On the more optimistic side, we have a mountain of unknowns. If Putin's rhetoric remains immovable in the need to eliminate root causes, whatever it may be, it could signal a demand for major concessions from Ukraine, which might be unacceptable for Zelensky and the Ukrainian public. If no one budges, we might see yet another breakdown in talks, fueling cynicism and more violence. And even if a ceasefire does get signed, there is no guarantee it will hold. This war has taught the world that an agreement can shatter overnight if one side senses an advantage or feels slighted. Yet, the fact remains. We are having a conversation about peace where none existed before. Instead of rumors and second-hand leaks, we have the sitting president of the United States of America confidently stating that he wants to stop the war. It is a starting point, and after 3 years of relentless carnage, it is better than nothing. Trump's phone calls may prove to be the spark that finally lights a path out of the darkness, or they might fizzle out, swallowed by the same old patterns of escalation and distrust. The entire world has reason to pay attention now, looking for any concrete signs that a ceasefire could be real, that the recruitment machine might slow, that new legislation might dampen the war effort instead of fueling it. The dilemma is huge. Guys, for this reason, I'm extremely curious to hear what you think. Should Ukraine accept peace under mostly Russian terms for as long as the fighting stops? Or should they continue fighting, bringing even more casualties, simply because you can never trust Putin? Please, let me know down below in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching. As you can see, the events will be rapidly developing in the next few weeks, so once again, please subscribe to my channel. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below, for example, my Patreon, where you can receive these episodes in the early access, and also get some bonus content. Thanks so much for watching, see you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell, their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe